If you remember the details of Derrick Rose's disturbing rape trial that occurred last year and has not been dropped and will actually resurface around October 4th, which is similarly to the time that New York Knicks will be returning to camp. Preseason basketball season is about to get started at that point. There's been new details, even more disturbing details, that have surfaced from this case. That doesn't look necessarily good for Derrick Rose. However, keep in mind that these are not proven details. They are simply some stuff that was used in testimony, so obviously that's something to be concerned about. And the other details that are coming out from a story via Yahoo.com and Uproxx that are just shedding more light on what seems to be a pretty messed up situation outside of the idea of whether it was a gang rape as it's what he's being accused of with some of his friends or not. We don't have the facts of whether or not this is true in terms of the entire story, but as they surface, we're going to bring you more information and eventually get into some hopefully happier, lighter Knicks news in general towards the end of the clip. So I'm going to read from Yahoo.com and their take on it and eventually get into some elements for you guys as well. So just over a year ago, TMZ reported that Derrick Rose was being sued for an alleged gang rape that took place during the summer of 2013. On Thursday, Think Progress's Lindsey Gibbs laid out all the newest details surrounding the case with excerpts from court briefings, depositions, and text messages from the night of and subsequent nights after the incident in question. For those who haven't been following the story, Rose is being sued by Jane Doe, her real name still has not been revealed to the public, for $21.5 million in damages for an alleged gang rape between Rose and his friends Randall Hampton and Ryan Allen. So let's move into the new details of the case. There's two quotes we have for you in regards to this story. The first is E21, which is Derrick Rose's new details, and it runs right into the next. So, quote, instead, Rose comes off as one of the sexual deviances. Rose's deposition and text transcripts reveal that he asked Doe to purchase, quote, a sex belt, send videos of her masturbating and engage in group sex, which Rose admits that she never consented to. At one point, he allegedly called off his relationship with Doe because she refused to have group sex with Hampton and his girlfriend. In another instance, Rose is alleged to ask Doc to bring a friend over for a threesome that Doe was uncomfortable with. It continues, as for the night in question, there is evidence to suggest that Doe was unconscious or at the very least asleep when Rose, Hampton, and Allen showed up to her apartment. There are unanswered calls and text messages to her phone from Rose from roughly 2:05 a.m. to 2:53 a.m., and Doe claims that she, quote, woke up fully dressed and wet with lubricant, her sheets were messed up, she had found some blood, and there was a used condom. These are all not good things in the case of Derrick Rose. Lastly, Rose's testimony, which we have a transcript of, does not paint a good picture of Derrick Rose. There's probably a better way you could have answered these questions. This is one of the ways I don't think I would have gone with if you're trying to defend. Did either Mr. Hampton or Mr. Allen tell you why they wanted to go to the plaintiff's homes in the night in question? Again, Mr. Hampton, Mr. Allen, Rose's friends, plaintiff's home, Jane Doe. Rose, no. Question, so they just said, quote, hey, it's the middle of the night, let's go over to the plaintiff's house, and they never gave you a reason why they wanted to go over there. He responded with, no, but we men, you can assume. The defendant asked, I'm sorry, and he goes, I said we men, you can assume, like we leaving to go over to someone's house at 1 o'clock in the morning he's referring to. I'm sure there's nothing to talk about. I think there's a lot to be talked about, actually, especially with that answer. But Francis, what do you take from this? Because, again, this case is ongoing. It seems to have disappeared in the headlines in the media, even amongst Derrick Rose's free agency and signing the trade for Derrick Rose in the Knicks. You'd think like at that time it would pop up again. Oh, Derrick Rose's name is keyword heavy search. We got to remind the people that this was a case that was going on. It didn't until these new details emerged, or not really new details, but evidence emerged, and more quotes and more information emerged for the public to see.
It is concerning. Like when this came across our rundown, I mean, I remember it, but I actually had that moment where I was like, "Oh, what's going on with that?" Like that shouldn't be happening. Especially if I'm thinking that, and I'm someone that's involved in sports media and look at sports news every single day. Imagine what it's like for just a general, everyday person in the public who maybe was looking to see what happened to the story, but it's been buried under numerous other headlines that, of course, are taking fold in the limelight today. But so until again, I'm not jumping to snap judgments. I want to figure out the situation, and I don't want to make any sort of accusations that aren't valid at the moment until we find out what the deal is with the case. But what is valid is Derrick Rose's response to questions concerning that night. If you're already being potentially put on trial for a gang rape situation, what you don't answer with, unless that is the truth, like it doesn't seem to me that Derrick Rose has any sort of awareness as to what this actually sounds like. we men? No, you're not. If that's what you think, that for what they're looking to try and accuse you as, if you think that's what men do, or we men go over to people's house at 1 a.m, 3 people going over to a house where, according to reports, there's 1 woman there. That's not what I participate in at that time of the night. And I wouldn't turn around and be like, yeah, me and my buddies went over. If you and your buddies were told that you were going to a bar at 1 a.m, yeah, we went to a bar at 1 o'clock in the morning. It's fine. Like, that's what guys do. But 3 guys going over to a house that is reported there's 1 female there, that doesn't speak to me as we men, an answer like that. And that answer itself is so, it's almost cryptic in a way. Like, it doesn't make sense as to, especially if you're Derrick Rose, when, according to research, pleads his innocence. That isn't the best way to kind of go along with that.
It's one of the things, if you've watched any Derrick Rose press conference, this is how he talks.
Yeah.
So it's not different than we've seen of other Derrick Rose videos, Derrick Rose press conferences, Derrick Rose quotes. It just doesn't help in a situation like this. You're trying to paint a picture of innocence, as you said. Saying, we men, you know what it is, we went over her place at 1 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
That's not exactly the description or the at least the response that paints the most innocent picture. So again, we have to find out what will happen on October 4th when they go back to trial and what the outcome of this is. It's a major, major lawsuit. $21.5 million, even if you are Derrick Rose, is still a lot of money. And if any of this is true, you're going to have to pay your damages. That's obviously what's going to happen if it were to turn out to be true.
Criminal charges have to be included as well.
The side that I'm more concerned with the testimony than I am with the chunk of the quote where they say, you know, like as I read before, to purchase the sex belt, send videos of her masturbating, and whether you're where you lean on that end of the spectrum of like, oh, it's gross sex messaging and that shouldn't be done, or you're on the other end of the spectrum like it's sex messaging. He's 20, he's a mid-20s-year-old guy. And kids in college do the same. Guys in their mid-20s not do the same. Not that it might make it right, but these are things that get sent out. Now, to the level of sex toys and baiting it to group sex, it's a little extreme, but I'm not going to, sugarcoat the idea that this isn't something that happens, especially in some form of relationship. And they had some form of relationship, even though Rose was a little bit flaky. But keep in context the fact that this is a high-profile athlete. So that's like the major, major thing that I would say out of all of this is the high-profile athlete brings about a high-profile case, which means every little piece of evidence is kind of analyzed by people like me who don't know what they're talking about and don't know what the hell, how these trials really work, because I am not a lawyer, nor will I pretend to be. So there's more to analyze, and you look into it. So I'm just offering my opinion, not trying to state facts about legal lawsuits.
Well, I think I'm offering my opinion as well, and from what I've understood in the research that's gone into it, if he's first trying to get his partner at the time to engage in sexual activity and suggesting, according to text messages, of being involved in group sex, and then it's written down in the transcripts that you and 2 of your other male friends were heading over to her apartment or wherever at 1 o'clock in the morning, that kind of follows along that timeline, and it almost backs up the theory that you are pushing for group sex if the 3 of you are going over to her house. So the answer itself is arrogant. His answer back is arrogant. It's misogynist. It's almost like it's trying to make an excuse for guys going over to try and, pose a sexual situation involvement because we're guys. Like that doesn't, to me, it's so silly. It's obviously, it doesn't seem to me that, one, he understands really what the picture that paints. I imagine his legal counsel wouldn't be happy with that sort of response for him if he is pleading his innocence, because it's almost trying to make an excuse and it basically allows the other person in the conversation to start to work in their mind, what does we men mean? Like, what does he mean by we men?
What I was going to point out was like the boys will be boys phrase, similarly to the too much we love it response, is like one of the most logically flawed uses of like phrase. It may be in history because it happens so many times. Like even as with whatever it be, like family members, like, oh, there they are beating the crap out of each other, my 2 twin cousins or 2 8-year-old boys, and they're beating, boys will be boys. Yeah, right, but like one of their arms is dangling from like a thread. Like boys will be boys does not excuse what happens. Too bad we love it does not excuse what happens in certain situations. So In terms of the case, October 4th is going to be very interesting. It's right around the time that, again, all these teams are returning back for preseason basketball and rosters start getting finalized. So like, favorite, subscribe to the channel. Comments go a long way too. Twitter, everything's in the description box below, and we'll see you.